Jay, it's been a minute or two since you and I have gotten together and spoken. How are you doing, Jay? How is life right about now?
Doing great, buddy, man. Good to talk to you. We somehow get it done during the basketball season. Right? Did we miss last year?
I think that we did miss last year, but last year was a crazy year, Jay, as you know. So I will take it whenever I can get it, and here you are right now. Listen, I mentioned, Jay, last month it was announced that you are a member of the Hall of Fame class of 2021. I got to know, what kind of emotions run through you when you receive news like that?
It's definitely emotional, Jim. It is. They tell you months in advance that you're a finalist, and then they give you a date. A Wednesday that you'll get a call between 12 and 2. So, you're kind of waiting, and then a couple of weeks before that Wednesday, they tell you to hold the next weekend, hold it open in case you have to come up to Mohegan Sun and Springfield. So you just wait for that call. And Jerry Clenzo actually called 11:59. I wasn't even ready, and even though that you're going to know one way or another. It's very, very emotional. It's not something you ever think you're going to hear. And it meant a lot, especially coming from Jerry, having worked with him at USA Basketball. It was a nice, emotional moment. It was pretty cool.
It's got to be amazing. Jay Wright joining us. I'm curious, though, Jay, for a lot of people, when you go into the Hall of Fame, it's something that happens after you're done playing or coaching. So what's it like to be going into the Hall of Fame when you're in the middle of your career? Do you take a look back and reflect on everything you've accomplished, or do you just try to stay focused on the road ahead and stay in the moment?
Yeah, that's a unique challenge, Jim, is that when you get the call, and then the next weekend we went up to the ceremony at Mohegan Sun for the 2020 class, when Kobe and those guys were inducted, you answer a lot of questions, and it's all about your past. So it makes you stop in your tracks and start thinking about your career, when normally every other day you're just thinking about the next day, getting your players ready, and the next game. So, but once that weekend was over, you go back to just next day. Our guys come in tomorrow. They came in today. We can start working them out tomorrow. So we're thinking about next season, tomorrow's workouts, team meeting today. That's where your mindset is now.
Hall of Famer Jay Wright's joining us. Jay, you in the past, you and I have talked about some of your old buddies from back in the day in Churchville, guys like Bob Craig, Mook, the fellas. They used to like to bust your chops no matter how much success you had. So what did they make of you going into the Hall of Fame? What was that chatter like at that point?
First of all, every time you mention their name, man, I get killed. You're making them stars. They love it.
That's great. That is funny.
It just gives them more material. I can't I can't get on Jim Rome unless I mention their names. They take everything for that now.
Hey, don't worry about that, Jay. I got them. I got their back. I will always mention Craig and Mook and the fellas. I got that. I'll take care of that for you.
They will love it. But they bust my chops. Still can't beat it. We have a golf match, me and Bob Craig against Buff Raddick and Mook, and we can't beat them. And you can make the Hall of Fame and never beat us. It's not. There's no congratulations, none.
I love that. Jay Wright's joining us. That's the best, man. That's what those guys do. That's who they are. I don't even know those guys, and I feel like I know those guys. Jay, you've been really...
You would love them.
For sure, I do already. You've been really clear about the fact that your success is about the players who've been with you. But how would you describe the players that you want and the culture that you have developed?
It's a real interesting aspect of our recruiting now, and I think where we've evolved and hopefully gotten smarter in that our recruiting isn't selling our program. Our recruiting is educating each player and his family as to, what the path would be for them at Villanova, what the culture is at Villanova, that we want them to be. We want them to desire to be the best players they can be, the best students they can be, the best men they can be, and want to be an NBA player, but still want all those other things. And that we're gonna actually ask them to allow us to push them to their limits. And if that's not the way you want to go through college, we get it, and that you can be successful other ways. But just let's make sure we're on the same page. If you come here, we've been really fortunate with guys that come in here and just let you coach them, because you've done if we've done a good job educating them before they get here.
Talking to Jay Wright. Jay, do you remember kind of what your mindset was when you were their age? For instance, when you look back on those days in Churchville or coaching at the University of Rochester or selling tickets to the Philadelphia Stars, was the Basketball Hall of Fame on your mind at all?
No, never. It's still hard. It's still hard to believe. I'm still not even, I haven't come to grips with it yet. I hope I will at some point. But I would think back then when I was playing and even when I started getting to coach at University of Rochester, in '87 when we became assistant coach to Coach Massimino here at Villanova, I think for me at that point I had kind of felt like, all right, this is good enough. Like, I'll stay here. I love this. I just love being a part of this. I love Villanova. I love that we get to coach guys that are good students that want to be great players. That was it. Then you kind of want to be a head coach, but you're never thinking beyond that. I wasn't, at least.
We're talking to Jay Wright, and even more amazing that you end up where you are right now if you weren't thinking about that then, but you just kept your head down. You just kept grinding and working and battling. And then you look at your career and you look at the way it's all developed. Like you mentioned Team USA. Before we get to next season, you're going to be a part of the USA basketball staff that is scheduled to go to Tokyo for the Olympics this summer. How much are you looking forward to that experience, and what do you take away from that experience at this point?
Oh, man, Jim, I love that. I learned so much from that. And one of the things I love about it, in the middle of your head coaching career, you actually get to go be an assistant, which is really valuable because it makes me realize what my assistants are doing, what's important. And, I'm learning from Pop. Steve Kerr is an assistant coach, and Lloyd Pearson is assistant coach. Jeff Van Gundy works with us. So you get to listen to other head coaches when you're all working together. It's one thing when you listen to another head coach and he's coaching his team. It doesn't always relate to what you're doing. But when you're all working with the same players and you get to listen to them approach situations, you learn so much from them. I've learned so much from working with Pop and those guys, and I think it's made me a better coach. And I think it's helped my assistants, too, because I've shared with them things that we've done as assistant coaches.
Jay Wright's a Hall of Famer. Jay, so what's that like? I mean, you've got Pop, but everybody you just mentioned are all extremely qualified. They're all alphas. They're used to being the guy. They're used to having all eyes on them. Does everybody have to check their ego at the door when they show up for that? Or is it just already kind of ingrained and accepted, and it's not a hard transition or process to indulge in?
Yeah, you know what, Jim? That's a really interesting question to address because I think over all the years doing this, I think coaches are generally are team players. Like but they're put in a position where they have to be a decision maker. They're not afraid of it. They're good leaders. But as soon as you put a bunch of coaches together, they're all very cognizant of everyone's talents, and they're very respectful of each other. Like our meetings are amazing. Pop's really, you got Jerry Colangelo in there too, and Sean Ford, who runs USA Basketball, are really talented people. But everyone, like Pop goes out of his way to make us all feel like we're part of the decision-making process. And sometimes, some of us, I know myself or Steve Kerr will say to him like, we'll just go, whatever you think, we'll go with it, because we know as head coaches, sometimes we need our assistants to do that. Just, you don't need to hear our opinion right now. Let's go with what you want. And obviously Pop is very comfortable with that, but everybody definitely checks their ego and everybody's all about the team. And when you get to the Olympic level or World Cup, like we did a couple summers ago, the players do the same thing. It's very cool to see the players do that with each other too.
That is cool, and I think that's equally as important, obviously. Jay Wright joining us. That's a really interesting dynamic in and of itself. If we had more time, I would ask you about that and follow up on that. I do, Jay, want to ask you about the team, though. Colin Gillespie and Jermaine Samuels announced that they're coming back next season. That gives you 4 returning starters and a lot of depth going into 2021-22. What are your early thoughts on how good this team might be?
we have a chance to be a good team. We really do. You know, there aren't many. All of us in college basketball try to get our teams to be experienced. We try to get depth, and sometimes you have one or the other, and then sometimes like you'll have an experienced team that don't have a lot of depth, but during the season you try to build that depth, or vice versa. We're going into the season with both, which is rare and really exciting, you know. And we even have 4 freshmen who, you know, have a chance to, you know, as we get to watch them work out here, and we get to start tomorrow, could add to that depth. But having Colin Gillespie and Jermaine as fifth-year seniors, those guys are great leaders. They had great senior years last year, you know, and then a guy like Justin Moore, who's ready to be a dominant player now. Brandon Slater, who really came on at the end of last year. Have those guys coming back. We're excited about this season. And then, you know, once it tips off, everything's even again. You just got to get it done.